Welcome to our channel, Fiction Wizard, a fantasy story explainer.
Chapter 46 begins with Sung Jinwoo waking up in his room to someone on the other side of the phone. He gets up and picks up the phone. The person asked if he was still sleeping and told him to look at the time. Jin-Woo said he looked and started panicking. He was reminded that today was the school day. Jin-Woo then asked how long it would take to reach school, and the man told him that he should be there at least before 5 o'clock. He jumped on this chance and ran toward the bathroom to get ready before he left. And he went along with his sister, asking her if she expected to see him at school on time. Jin-Woo, feeling refreshed, decides to dress even better since he is to meet his sister's teachers. The scene changes, and we see Jin-Woo arriving at a bank. He approaches the receptionist woman, informing her that he has an application for a new debit card and updating of his bank book. He gives her the papers and scrolls through the figures, and she's surprised when he has $1.4 billion in his account. She questions how a young guy could have such money. She asks him about his profession, to which Jin-Woo reveals that he is a hunter. She thinks that since the hunters earn so much, they have to be at the highest rank to be earning so much. She says to him that the bank has recently come up with a new procedure for its VIP clients, and the clients are giving good feedback. She asks him if he wants to try it out, but Jin-Woo replies, "I'm just here to update my account, and I'm not interested." The place cuts to the school where he meets his sister. His sister was surprised because she didn't expect Jin-Woo to look so stylish. Jin-Woo asked her what was wrong. Doesn't he look good? She says that he looks different, and Jin-Woo says he was meeting her teachers. What was she expecting him to wear? A tracksuit and slippers. All the students are stunned to see Jin-Woo as he makes his way through the corridor. His sister tells him that he is popular. She asks him if he is in a relationship. If not, she will introduce him to one of her friends. He rubs her face and says, "Do not taunt me." He went to the consultation room, opened the door, and entered, seeing a teacher who beckoned him to go inside. She commented that she didn't know Gina had such a cool brother. Jin-Woo thought he went to this school, but it was the first time he'd seen this teacher. She asks him to sit down. She says he doesn't need to trouble his head about this because Gina has a good personality and kind disposition. She is a model student. The teacher questions Jin-Woo on whether he knows that his sister aims at medical college. But Jin-Woo says he knows all that. The teacher praises Gina, saying her marks are good, and so is the marks report. She has to reach a good medical school. He should not pressurize her, she says. She asks him whether his sister would be developing into some kind of ability in the future. Does he make her do hunter's work? Jin-Woo slowly looks very serious and says, "No, of course not." He would never force any such thing regarding hunting upon her. She exhaled with a sigh of relief. She says to him that is why she asked that question. The reason she asked it is that recently one of her students woke up her powers and wanted to quit school and instead become a hunter. She says to him that even though she doesn't go to her classes anymore, if this keeps going on, then the school will be in the process of doing so. She says to him that even if somebody wakes up his abilities, he has to finish school. She says she doesn't know much about hunters, so she was asking him about it. Jin-Woo asks her what rank the student received, and the teacher replies that she is of the lowest rank. Jin-Woo thinks she is an E rank, and this student will die sooner or later if she continues on this path. The teacher asks if she is a friend and introduces her to Jin-Woo and asks if he can talk to her and convince her at least to graduate first before becoming a hunter. He was shocked that she was one of Gina's friends. The teacher continues to introduce Han Song. Jin-Woo then agrees to talk with her. The scene changes, and we see a student going somewhere and stops when approached by Jin-Woo. He informs her Korea is small after all since he knows the person. He says, as expected, it is you. She asks him why he's here. The girl asks Jin-Woo if he is the hunter her teacher wanted to introduce to her. Jin-Woo shows her a picture of Jin-Ah and asks if she knows her. She said that was Jin-Ah and asked him if he was her brother. She tells him that she even went to the hospital with Jin-Ah, but she didn't catch a glimpse of his face while she was there. She says if he is Jin-Ah's brother, she knows that he must know the teacher, but Jin-Woo says he doesn't know her. She says she doesn't know what the teacher told him about her, but she's not going back to school and she's not quitting for being a hunter either. Jin-Woo asks if she's an E-rank, then lets her know that regular attacks just won't do against monsters. She needs to have a weapon infused with magic. Even if she succeeds in buying one, it would soon be running out, and she would have to go ahead and buy another, saying it was not a profitable business and asking her if she meant to fight barefisted. He proceeds by saying that if she is going to be a full-time hunter because she could get some change from their raid team. The girl cuts him off, declaring enough lectures, for Jin-Woo was also an E-rank. Jin-Woo thinks she is quite stubborn, as he used to be. He tells the little girl he wasn't thinking of convincing her to give up being a hunter, thinking it is hard to accept reality until you see it with your own eyes, cold and cruel world. She asks him why he is here if that's not the case. Jin-Woo tells her he is there to turn her into a great hunter. Cut to the next story where a man is thinking he visited South Korea way earlier than his scheduled time as he is greeted by another man. The man asks him what business the Korean Hunter Guild has with him, and the second man replies saying it's only natural that a hunter from the monitoring division is here to receive and observe the S-rank hunter arriving in Korea. Now, the first man is heard, and he goes straight to his face, saying he is still working as that old man's right-hand man. If it were him, he says, he would have cut up his left hand, ensured he could not do anything without his right hand, and taken over everything. The second man, without bothering to look at him, inquires how long he would be staying, to which the second man answers that he isn't going to stay here in Korea for very long and will return after he finishes some business. The second guy asks him what business an exiled man, who lost his country and came to the USA, has here, questioning whether the business has something to do with E-rank hunter Jin-Woo and D-rank hunter Eugene Ho. And then, after that, the first man is angered and, in words characteristic of a member of the monitoring department, asks him if he's going to stop him. But the second man responds by saying that he's just dedicated to his profession. The first man suggests that he join the scavenger guild as he's fond of him, saying they will treat him much better than that old geezer. The man thinks that an S-rank hunter named Hwang Dong-soo and his brother Hwang Dong-suk have been suspected of murdering many hunters, and the reason that they were unable to conduct a proper investigation was account of his brother. As they are truly brothers bound by blood, even their lack of sentiment after cruel murders is the same, and he calls them despicable trash. There's a skip forward in the story. We see Jin-Woo and the little girl meeting some people who introduce themselves as the chief of the second department, On Sang-min, and Hyun Ae-chul, an assistant from the same department. They ask if she is the student from before. He thinks she is just an E-rank, so she should be nothing. But since there's also the case of Hunter Jin-Woo, he shouldn't jump to conclusions. He tells them that he was surprised when he received a call from Hunter Jin-Woo to experience the training session of a recruit. He says he had received a request from none other than Hunter Jin-Woo, so he accepted it without hesitation. He tells Jin-Woo that he already explained it to the other hunters, so there was no need for him to worry. and since this is an area with a high concentration of gates, not many people live here, and more than 80% of the households have already left. They say it's been decided to shut down certain areas completely. He informs them that a C-rank gate perfect for a field trip has opened right here at the right moment. He hears someone from behind saying that it's already past 9 o'clock. Stop the chatter and get started since they are not here for a picnic. Jin-Woo asks who this guy is and what kind of person, to which Sang-min responds, "Recruit, he's a rank. But he must be upset after listening to that I accepted your request, for he said that a dungeon is not a place for fooling around." He then says that his name is Kim-Chul, and as you can see, he is a tank. Sang-min said that the team consists of 1 A rank, 7 B rank, and 4 C ranks, total of 12 people. He explained why so many people were going into the dungeon to explain that all of those hunters were recruits, and all of them needed some dungeon experience. Jin-Woo comments that if the raid is too easy, then it would decrease the experience effects. But she might think this is not bad, as she will receive the real difference between herself and other hunters. As Aechul says, looking at that excited girl going into the dungeon, Jun-was participating in the raid will make it too easy. He tells Jun-Woo to stay by the side. As they went in at the gate, Jun-Woo felt that something was badly wrong, and the outside of the gate started to emit dark energy. As the gate began fluctuating, Jun-Woo thought that the feeling from the dungeon was entirely different than before. The men outside the dungeon also panicked after watching the door change its color. Jun-Woo attempts to escape the dungeon, but, unfortunately for him, fails. At the last moment, he bellows at the men to call the main attack force immediately. When the men find out that the door is closed, thus sealing all of the hunters inside, Sang-min begins to call the master because this problem cannot be solved by just calling the main attack force. He tells the man everything that happened to Red Gate appears in the place, and many of their recruiters, including Jun-Woo, are captured inside. The man was stunned to hear that. How is a Red Gate possible from a C-rank gate? He tells the men that he will personally come there to assess the situation. The scene cuts to Wand, who sits in a car with Woo. Wand tells him that this is a nice car, although it is still not appropriate enough to escort an S-rank hunter. He asks him about his brother's funeral, and Woo says they couldn't retrieve his corpse and had held the funeral privately. He asks if Wand would like to visit his brother's grave. "No," responds the man. He has no interest in the dead. Besides, he doesn't want any of his brother's leavings. Woo asks him where he wants to go, and Wand says he is going to a dungeon, for their Jun-Woo, whom he also calls a lousy hunter, will be found. Woo asks how he'd find him with gate numbers numbering millions in Korea. Wand pulls out his phone, saying that's no problem in the 21st century, and informs Woo that Jun-Woo has just entered a dungeon with bloodlust in his eyes. He tells Woo that rules inside a dungeon and out in the world are different. Whether he buries him or not is none of Woo's business. The story fast forwards, and we see the hunters inside a dungeon where it is snowing. The hunters are panicking and are shouting, "What is this? Where is this?" The gate is nowhere to be seen, and the place resembles a dungeon. Junwa's assumption was wrong, as he thought that nothing bad was occurring. He has thought that maybe they have been transported to this place as the gate simply disappears. To his response about whether something is wrong, they begin to get assaulted. Jun-Woo catches one of the projectiles before it hits the girl. One of the arrows hits one of the hunters, and everyone freaks out after that. Since they had been ambushed, they looked at the location from which the arrows were coming and caught sight of ice elves in the trees. Jun-Woo wonders why he wasn't able to sense them, for they were not that far. But outside the dungeon, the guild master has arrived at the location, and when he's trying to enter the dungeon, he notices the gate shut off tight. He asks the men there if they have called the Korean Hunter Guild. They tell him they did, but they were playing dumb, saying it was a C-rank gate. The guild master gets angry after hearing that, saying red gates only appear in higher rank dungeons. He goes on to say that the energy coming from this gate was not of a C-rank dungeon, saying it is at least B-rank, or if they are unlucky, it could even be an A-rank gate. The men ask him if they should measure the gate using their magical energy sensor, but the guild master tells them that the energy stops flowing out after the gate has turned red, and it's pointless to do that. He asks how many of their members have entered the dungeon. The men tell him that there were a total of 12 people, the A-rank hunter specified as the captain and 7 B-rank hunters. The men ask if the recruits will be alright. The guild master tells them that the gate has to be either B or A rank, and if they rule out the possibility of S rank, that would put the whole country in emergency. If it is B rank, then at least 3 A rank hunters will be required. But an A rank gate at least requires 1 S rank or 10 A rank hunters. Thus, if this were an A rank dungeon, we should count all of them as good as dead, and maybe luckier than that, 2 or 3 A or B rank hunters return alive. The men got scared after that, and they told him that the other 2 people at that gate were not part of their guild. The master asked them who the person was. Chiefon told him it was someone he had laid his eyes on recently. The guild master was surprised that some person had piqued Chiefon's interest. He asks what rank that man is, whether it is an A rank or B rank hunter. Chiefon shakes his head, and the guild master thinks maybe he is an S rank, but to his disappointment, the chief tells him it is an E rank hunter and his name is Jin-Woo. The scene cuts back to Jin-Woo, worried that their eyes are sharp, as they could pick out and neutralize the 2 weakest hunters among the attack force. 2 months ago, this arrow would have been aimed at him. One of the elves mocks Jin-Woo by making a sign at him, and that sets him off. As Jin-Woo watches them run away from the location, he says, "I'll kill you with my own hands." The A-rank hunter tells everyone that he is not clear who has understood the situation, but they are within a red gate, so they cannot go back unless all of them either die or the dungeon opens. Heard that, the hunters start panicking, so the girl asks Jin-Woo, "What is a red gate?" Jin-Woo explained to her it's a special gate that is connected to the other world, and once one foot steps in there, the gate closes off entirely and no one can enter from the outside. The way out of this is if they defeat the dungeon boss, or if it opens by itself. That is to say, they are stuck. The A-rank hunter starts introducing himself to the hunters, saying that his name is Kim-Chul. Now that they know this is a red gate, he takes responsibility for their survival. And then he goes further by saying he won't declare that all of them will come out alive without playing like saying that, because they need to wait for many months for this dungeon to open. So that is up to them whether they survive these months. He explains that the red gate is at least B rank, and in a dangerous place like this, it will be hard to manage a large number of people. So, he has decided to form a separate team to clear the dungeon with him. Jin-Woo, having heard that, cannot help but be amazed by the idea that they are going to attempt to clear this dungeon. The hunter said they would either freeze to death or get ambushed if they stayed there. If no one wanted to clear the dungeon with him, he would have gone there alone and asked who wanted to join him. All agreed to go with him, reasoning they'd have a better chance at survival by sticking to an A-rank hunter. He kicks out some of the members from the party, as he cannot bring any member with a rank that is C rank or worse, since a day in the red gate is only an hour outside, and in the worst case scenario, countless months could go by before the boss is killed or the dungeon is opened. Therefore, he cannot bring any deadweight with him. He tells them all not to be disappointed, as if they manage to survive until they take down the boss, they can also return safely. As he is explaining everything to them, one of the high-rank hunters asks him if it is okay for her to switch sides. He tells her she can do whatever she wants and thinks about who this woman is because she now chooses the other side instead of sticking with the one who was a high-ranked hunter. He asks if anyone would want her place because there is an available spot in the team. One of the low-ranked hunters volunteers to take her place. As she passes by Jin-Woo, she says the A-rank hunter did not see the arrow, but Jin-Woo saw it. She said he was an E-rank hunter since he hid in his real power. The scene switched on to the men outside the dungeon. They are trying to figure out what they have to do in this situation. Chiefon spoke with the guild master about Jin-Woo, saying he's sure that Jin-Woo is woken up. The guild master asked him if he was sure that this was not something to speculate. The chief said it was, and the master said in that case, the only person I can put my faith in is Kim-Chul. Another man, who is the head of the first department of management, Sung Jinwoo, says to the master that the result of Hunter Kim-Chul's training is amazing, so he will not be behind the main attack line of the present White Tiger Guild in a power battle. The master sighed with relief because of this. Mocking Chiefon, he says, from what was whispered of rumors, an E-rank hunter and a possibility of being reawakened our Kim-Chul is much stronger than such a hunter with no foundation, and Chiefon says, we'll see who's right when they get out. While they spoke, a car parked behind them, and a man exited from it. He said, I heard it's a C-rank gate. Did it turn out to be an A-rank one? It was Huang who asked why the master of the White Tiger Guild was there. One was very surprised to see him there. The guild master asks him why he is in Korea. He tells him he dropped by to take care of some business, but hadn't anticipated seeing him. But the master gets angry at him, saying, just answer my question. Why is a man who should be in the United States back in Korea and doing business in the White Tiger Guild's area? He asks the guild master whether that rubbish hunter entered the White Tiger Guild, but does not know to whom he is speaking. So Huang says he was referring to the E-rank kid called Sung Jinwoo, who has entered the gate. Master thinks, how does Huang know him? He approaches the gate and, after inspecting it, asks whether this is a red gate. We see Jin-Woo, who was in the dungeon. He asked the hunters how they were so calm for recruits, and the girl told him that the first lesson that was taught to them was that anything could happen inside the dungeon, especially Hunter Kim, as he has received special coaching. He's destined to join the White Tiger's main attack force. As they were walking, they began to part ways, wishing each other luck. As they were walking, the girl asked him if he wouldn't tell her his Real rank while thinking, this man is at least A rank. As the team was walking, they stopped as they noticed something. Kim-Chul points at a tree that has huge scratch marks on it. He tells the team that the forest is ice bear territory. He goes on to say that because of one inexperienced E-rank hunter, all of those people were about to die. One of the party members asks him if any of those E-rank hunters ever got some proper coaching. Kim-Chul thinks about Jin-Woo and that there's no way he's just an E-rank. Believing that they will all die shortly, he produces his battle axe and says, prepare for battle. They find the biggest white bear and at full speed charge toward them. A bear attacks Kim-Chul, but with his shield, he stops it and breaks the paws of the bear. As he roars in agony, Kim-Chul spots the opportunity and begins to attack it with his axe, burying him in one shot. A while later, we see that they had slain all the bears in the region, and everyone was singing praises of him due to his strength because he was able to kill most of the bears single-handedly. Kim-Chul says to cut out the meat as they should make sure of supplying their foodstuff. We see Jin-Woo, who is on his way walking through the forest. The female hunter stopped him, saying, "We cannot go this far and need to return." Jin-Woo asked her the reason, and she explained that this part is ice bear territory markings, and that this entire forest is ice bear territory. She said that they should return before the monsters arrived. Jin-Woo explained that's why they are shifting to the forest, because only the bears live there. Since the ice bears are more sensible than ice elves, they don't have much concern over them. She believed that they had lots of ice bears, which meant no stronger predators existed here, and they wouldn't face any stronger monsters there. As she is reflecting on this, Jin-Woo asks them whether they don't feel cold in those clothes. He opens his inventory and pulls out warm clothing for everyone, saying, "It'll be bothersome if we all die from cold before we face any monsters." Everybody, when they saw this, was taken aback because spatial magic is only up to 1 or 2 items, and he was able to bring so many ins. The girl asks him who he is, and Jin-Woo puts his hand on her head, saying, "Since I'm the one who brought you here, it's my responsibility to protect you. However, don't ask anything." He tells the same thing to the rest of the members, not to ask him any questions and not to demand anything from him. As Jin-Woo was explaining everything to them, he heard footsteps in the distance. It was an ice bear charging straight at them. As the monster approaches them, everybody starts to panic, and the female hunter tells them it is wrong to enter the forest. She tells everybody that she is going to distract the monster while all of them find an opening. Before she could end that, Jin-Woo interrupted her and said plainly, "I will say this once. I will hunt the monsters alone." But the girl told him that no matter how he was already a high-ranked monster, he was still one. As Jin-Woo thinks, "I don't want to waste the experience standing right in front of me," and change his title from the one who overcame adversity to Wolf Slayer and prepares himself to face the bear. Now, a bear attacked him with its paw, but he dodged it by jumping in the air, narrowly avoiding getting hit. As he was preparing to hit the monster, he thought that if he included this title's effect at my level now, only by bare hands, he could defeat the beast and hit the bear right on top of the head. The impact was so strong that it created shock waves in the air as the bear nearly got buried into the ground, leaving all stunned with regards to what they just seen. They stare at Jin-Woo in disbelief as he sits astride the defeated monster, thinking, "It was just as I thought. Since the standard is higher, the experience gain is different." He realizes that he has leveled up. The scene cuts back to the men outside the gate, where the guild master was asking the reason for coming all this way to see an E-rank hunter. Huang tells him it is none of your business, saying it's just entertainment. The master tells him it is highly unlikely for him to survive because this is a red gate. And beyond the gate, instead of some dingy dungeon, it could be a desert of over 60 degrees Celsius, a jungle full of poisonous vipers and insects, or even an area that is extremely cold so that it might give you severe frostbite. Huang says he also wants to know what lies beyond here. "I get to see something so rare while just passing by, but this is quite troublesome, and I can't wait here until the dungeon opens." We see the hunters in the dungeon cooking some meat over a fire. We see their names: Myung Hwan, who was a C-rank hunter, Yoon Ki-jung, who was also a C-rank, and B-rank Park Hee-jin. The schoolgirl, sitting by the fire, would start asking Jin-Woo questions about his sister. Does Hina do nothing but study at home? They say she puts up dictionaries on the wall instead of wallpaper to memorize words while sleeping. She is just like you guys, says Jin-Woo when she gets home. She likes to play and eat and sleep. At home, she is a sleepyhead who loves fried chicken. The girl believes he does not speak the truth because she gets such excellent grades. Jin-Woo tells her that he cannot believe it too because they used to play in the arcade together as kids. Myung and Hee-jin were discussing that the bear ambushes were decreasing, and Hee-jin said to him that it was because Jin-Woo took care of the bears. While chatting, Jin-Woo stood up. They asked him where he was going. He told them, "Because I dined. I am going to exercise." They asked him why he must exercise because they were inside a gate. He tells them that if he does not do so, then he will be charged with a penalty, and everybody thinks he sure is strange. While exercising, he feels that he must not leave behind the attack force and end up at the bottom of the penalty zone. He says, "Since I have warmed up, it's time to go hunting." He reaches a cave and finds it full of ice bears. Seeing them, he says, the numbers are roughly the same, and starts summoning his shadow soldiers. The space behind him filled up slowly with darkness and shadow soldiers that gradually appeared from there. Every scent in that area was filled up with shadow soldiers from him. Before them, he told them to go and kill all the monsters inside that cave. Both parties began charging towards each other, and bloodshed started because Jin-Woo was standing there, witness to all the carnage. One-sided again, but shadow soldiers were overpowering the bears gradually. Watching, Jin-Woo think that a magician with powerful firepower and infantry with rapid regeneration strength of shadow soldiers was beyond my expectations. The unbelievable regeneration was almost comparable to immortality, but it consumed a huge amount of mana. As he watched, he saw a big bear come out from the cave and said, "The leader has appeared." He, the monster as big as a mountain, easily starts to kill the shadow soldiers. He also spends his mana. He thinks shadow soldiers are getting smashed in an instant and have no match. But when he sees the notification saying shadow soldiers can no longer regenerate because it has run out of mana, Igris remains as the only shadow soldier on the battlefield. Jin-Woo says take care of the monster, and Igris starts walking towards the boss. He draws his sword, and he runs toward the bear to control some damage to its arm. With screams, the bear, due to pain and anger, hits Igris. However, Igris quickly dodges that and manages to thrust his sword into the bear's arm right near its shoulder, rendering it unarmed. The bear let out a roar since now it has its arms disabled and can't attack any longer. Igris runs around the bear to injure its legs. The bear stands there undefended. Igris moves in front of him so that the fight will end now. The bear growls at him, and with a quick motion, he chops it in the neck to end the fight. He takes the head to Jin-Woo, who was thinking that if he had used his sword when fighting with Igris, there would be no other choice but to lose against him, as in his present levels they were the same. He kneels in front of Jin-Woo, placing the bear's head before him. Jin-Woo is content with all his efforts and thanks him by saying he's done well. He uses his powers and turns the bear into a shadow soldier. There are men outside the gate, but they're waiting for the gate to open. So the guild master asks them for how long, and they say 3 hours. So he tells them that it's been 3 days inside. Chiefon says, "I wonder how many are still alive." But the master instructs him to throw away any hope of a normal environment past the red gate because skin burns under glaring sunlight, is pestered endlessly by poisonous bugs, or rots because of hard cold. As such, the weak will first die off, and even if they can adapt, they then must find food next. They might try to scrounge off of the monsters' corpses, but the gate is too high level for low-tier hunters. C rank or below hunters must all be dead by now. What Huang thinks when he hears that this is indeed the case means Jin-Woo is dead too, and wasted his time on just nothing. Then he realizes something. Jin-Woo isn't part of the White Tiger Guild. He asks how he'd ended up there. Chief On tells him that Jin-Woo is an old acquaintance of his and asks if he could take part in a C rank raid. So he introduces him here out of obligation. The guild master thinks if the chief was covering for Hunter Jin-Woo, does that mean exposing him is problematic? And the S-rank Huang from overseas also knows about this E-rank's existence. As he is thinking that, Huang grabs the chief by his neck, picks him up, and says, "For a long time I've been talented in finding interesting situations, and I can feel something fishy here." He asks the chief to tell him the truth about what he was hiding, but the master comes, holding his arm, and tells him to take his hands off his employee. Huang disrespects him by saying, "Was he ordering me? Someone who's playing leader in a backyard?" This makes the master angry, and he freezes the area. The head thinks that if this continues, S-rank will be the one to fight each other. The scene shifts back to the dungeon where the hunters are fighting some monsters. We see Kim-Chul standing there, quite exhausted, because he has lost all his armor and weapons after fighting many monsters. He hears the screams of his fellow hunters who are being torn apart by the monsters. This time, he thinks that possibly he won't be an elite white tiger because he has failed and does not want to get ahead of himself. He was thinking, and one of his companions gets shot by an arrow. As he looks in front of him, he sees ice elves marching towards them. He thinks, elves, right after Yeti. The last hunter asks for his help, but a knife flies to him and puts an end to his life. And here Kim-Chul looks at everything and starts running from there. Kim-Chul opens the next chapter walking through the forest after being beaten and bruised, traumatized from the battle when he saw all his companions slaughtered in front of him. As he walks, he blames the cold and hunger for everything, thinking, "If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have lost the fight." As he does that, his eyes catch something in the distance that leaves him stunned. He sees a pile of dead bears in the way. He thinks, did those guys manage to do this? But concludes they do not have the skills for it and starts running away thinking it must have been the elves and there was a possibility they might still be around. The scene then shifts to the outside of the dungeon where the guild master and Wand are in a stare down. As Wand defended the guild master, both of them were radiating potent energy around them, and both of them launched at each other. As they crashed into each other, the ground shattered with the energy of their attack, and the shock waves almost blew away the other people around them. When the dust settles, everyone can see Wu, who had been standing between them and had managed to stop their attacks. He tells them that if the two had been late to weaken, then his arms would have broken. Wu tells Wan that he was the first man who suspected Jin-Woo of reawakening. However, after testing him with the magic power detector of the highest grade 2 months ago, he was still in E rank. He says, "Sorry to say he was my brother, Hunter Huang Dong-suk. So sorry you can't eliminate a whole attack force." Wan says he knew that and that the perpetrator must be from Jinwa's architecture. Wu tells him, in that case, there is no reason to obsess over Hunter Jin-Woo, but with rage in his eyes, Wan tells him it's just an excuse to kill another human being. After that, he starts to leave, saying he has already lost his excitement and will just head to bed. We see Chief On thinking he was aware of Jinwa's abilities better than anyone. If it's him, He'll come back alive, he thinks. The following scene shifts to the hunters in the dungeon who sit in their shelter around the fire, still chatting and enjoying themselves. Kim-Chul was quiet, out there looking at them in disbelief, seeing them all alive and in such good condition. He thinks how many of the sub-rank hunters are there who are alive, and in the group of his team, the high rankers did not come alive. He gives attention to their warm clothes, blankets, and food, and how they collected everything in such a short time. He gets angry, starts pinning everything on them, and assumes they planned all of this and had kept the stuff to themselves. He shouts at all of them, alerting their attention. All were shocked to see him there. They asked him how he had found them, and he stated that owing to a lack of food and equipment, his attack force had been eradicated. He inquired from them how they had sourced all these provisions, but before they could tell him, he expressed that he did not think that all of them were accomplices and that he was interested in knowing who it was that hid all these provisions. He said he would let the rest of them go free if the one behind everything was brought out into the open. All were afraid after hearing that. He tells them he is going to count to 3, and if they do not reveal the person, he will hold all of them guilty. Upon starting the count, his sword pops out, and he looks at Hee-jin, doing a mental calculation that the girl must have volunteered to leave because she didn't have enough confidence in her ability to survive on her own and wanted to minimize the head count as a means to preserve food supply. He shouts at her saying that she was the one who did all this, and before he can do anything, a hand from behind slaps him in the head with a thud, throwing him into a tree. It was Jin-Woo who says he was the one who left his comrades to die, and after getting them all killed, he came back with dead weight. All the hunters looked at him in horror, wondering what he was talking about. What dead weight? As they all look into the distance, Jin-Woo tells someone to undo their stealth as hiding their powerful energy is pointless. We see ice elves who had followed Kim-Chul to their camp. All the hunters get scared after seeing so many ice elves in front of them. The leader of ice elves says there was a useful one among all the trash, and that makes Jin-Woo angry as he asks him if he called them trash. The ice elves were surprised to see that Jin-Woo could speak their language. He was happy to see that they could communicate, and so introduced an elf to Jin-Woo. It was the same elf who had taunted him during the first encounter with ice elves. The leader of the elves tells him that he was the one who notified him that there was someone strong among the humans. He goes on to say that he wants to face off with him, but before he can finish, the head of the elf goes flying, and we see Jin-Woo standing behind them with a dagger in his hand. He asks the elf if he has something to say, and the elf looks at him with excitement as he calls him amusing. They revert to the normal course of their fight, clashing with each other. In the middle of the fight, the elf stops and tells Jin-Woo he has a proposal, but before that, he asks Jin-Woo a question. He continues, "Not being human, why are you among them?" Jin-Woo is shocked to hear this and asks him what he is talking about. The elf explains that there is a voice in their head that constantly speaks to them asking them to kill humans, but he could not hear the voice when Jin-Woo was present with him. Jin-Woo must think this is the order of the system, and it does not apply to him because he was a player in the system. An elf says they do not need to fight because he doesn't want unnecessary casualties and tells Jin-Woo to hand over the humans behind him, and he will spare his life. Instead of answering him, Jin-Woo asks him a question. Who are these elves? Where did they come from? And why are they so obsessed with killing humans? As the elf tries to answer him, he begins to glitch. He freezes, then starts to repeat all of the things he was saying before regarding letting him go if he hands over all the humans. Jin-Woo is shocked by what he sees and thinks to himself, "Is he avoiding my question?" The elf asks him if he accepts their proposal, but Jin-Woo tells them that he refuses. The elf questions him if he believes he can handle the number of elves in front of him and intends to fight him and his soldiers alone, but Jin-Woo asks him, "What numbers?" The shadow soldiers begin to sprout up from the ground. All the hunters get frightened upon seeing this many monsters around them and are shocked to realize that all these shadow soldiers belong to Jin-Woo. After seeing that, the leader of the elves calls it a cheap trick, but Jin-Woo orders his soldiers to attack and kill all the elves. The hunters, after seeing that, begin to run away, saying that this isn't a battle they can get themselves into. As the battle continues, Jin-Woo thinks that threatening to call this a cheap trick isn't a bluff, because getting the soldiers back after being defeated is a lot of mana. He thinks since he leveled them up, they should be able to handle ice elves, but looking at the leader, he says he is a problem. He thinks even if he and Igris team up, it might not be enough to take him out. He looks at the unconscious Kim-Chul, saying, "I need a stronger soldier." As he was thinking, the elf introduced himself as Baruka and asked him his name. He tells him his name is Sung Jinwoo and kicks the sword towards the unconscious Kim-Chul. He leaps at Baruka with his dagger, but Baruka sidesteps the leap quite easily. Jin-Woo strikes again at Baruka, and he blocks it easily and kicks Jin-Woo, launching him away with one hit. But Jin-Woo manages to land on his feet. Baruka turns and says, "It's been a long while since I have had this much excitement," but looks up and sees a fireball coming straight toward him from above. The attack lands directly on Jin-Woo and thinks, "Thanks to my magician, I gained some time." Kim-Chul is also waking up and remembering what transpired to him, how Jin-Woo hit him from behind. He gets angry and sees his sword next to him. He picks it up to kill him. We see Jin-Woo telling Baruka to stop wasting time since he knew he didn't die from that attack. Baruka vaults from the flames yelling, "Is that the best your soldiers can do?" Walking toward Jin-Woo, he sees Kim-Chul and is walking his way too. He quips, "It seems I'm not the only one wanting your head," but takes note of something. Jin-Woo yells for Igris, and his shadow follows Kim-Chul. With a final thrust of his sword into Kim-Chul's chest, as he was about to breathe out for the last time, he asked Jin-Woo if he had predicted all along. When he says that, Baruka is already right in his face, yet Igris gets up in his way before he does anything. Jin-Woo used his ability on dead Kim-Chul, making him a shadow soldier. Standing before him, Jin-Woo wonders if he has got bigger compared to when he became a soldier. The system asks what he wants to name his new soldier. He considers naming him Kim-Chul first, but later decides that his name will be him Iron. As he is doing that, he hears Baruka telling him to stop wasting time, and after defeating Igris, he asks Jin-Woo if he thinks this lone soldier is enough to stop him. Jin-Woo tells him, of course not. As Iron prepares for battle, he uses his skill, Taunting Cry, which makes Baruka angry. Baraka says another amusing guy has shown up. "I'll chop down the slowpoke first and hit Iron." However, Iron manages to block the hit. He tells Jin-Woo that this slow soldier is no match for him, and Jin-Woo jumps in, saying, "How about all three of us?" As the fight continues, the hunters watch everything with amazement, saying they have never heard or seen such a thing, and wonder if they are in a dream. Igris starts attacking Baruka, but the latter wards it off. It was a diversion since Jinwoo's attack was coming at him from the back with a strike at the shoulder of Baruka, and he suffered paralysis and bleeding. It was not a killing blow since the resistance of Baruka, proving too much, was able to resist the blow. A notification appeared to Jin-Woo as he saw it, saying the resistance of the enemy was too high that the effect was negated. Baruka looked at him with fury in his eyes, calling him trash, but Jin-Woo looked at him without a care in the world, saying that he wasn't in any position to say that, and asked him to look around. Baruka saw all his soldiers defeated and surrounded from all sides, and jumped towards Jin-Woo, saying all those soldiers would disappear after he knocked him off. Jin-Woo throws his dagger his way, but Baruka dodges it. He calls him dumb because the young lad just threw away his sword. Jin-Woo uses his ability of Dominator's touch and guides the dagger towards Baruka. Baruka can stop the hit, but at the cost of losing his sword. Now, as Baruka is shocked, Iron takes him from the back in the hope of his score after the other mages launch a fireball towards him, hitting him straight to Baruka. But that was not enough to hold him back. He yells out to Jin-Woo, saying he is going to kill him, and misses the fact that he had stabbed him already. Jin-Woo warns him that it's the end, but Baruka clamps onto his hand. Just as he is about to bring him down, Iron gets back up and puts everything he has into hitting Baruka, literally burying him in the ground. Standing before him triumphant, he says, "I already told you this is the end." Jin-Woo receives a notification that tells him he defeated the dungeon boss and leveled up. He lets out a sigh of relief, saying, "It's finally over," and all the hunters are standing there in disbelief at what they just witnessed. All of a sudden, Iron starts hitting the already defeated Baruka, shocking Jin-Woo, who urges him to stop. He reprimands him not to do it while thinking, even after becoming a shadow soldier, he's still a dunce. Iris looks at him, thinking that he has to endure this idiot Iron, and turns around and walks away, but Iron, along with the rest of the soldiers, cheer up their victory. Jin-Woo said it was time to go home and opened the door in front of them. He pointed at the door and asked everyone to leave the dungeon since they could finally go back home because of their celebration. In between, Jin-Woo looks at the body of Baruka with a thought. The next scene outside the dungeon shows everybody waiting for the gate of the dungeon to open. Chiffon glances at his watch as he says, "It's already been 3 a.m. It must have been a week inside the gate." He tells the guild master to go back to his home. However, the master rebuts, "How could I rest at home while my members are imprisoned within?" He declares he will wait until morning. As they are talking, the gate is opening up. They see the hunters coming out of it. The guild master thought it must be Kim-Chul who survived and saved the rest of the hunters. As all the hunters start to come out of the dungeon, they see Jin-Woo, in the end, who can survive the dungeon. Chiffon brightens at this thought. "Just as I thought." The master turns to question them as the gate closes, and the girl turns to him and says they are the only ones alive, and the master makes a stunned only low-rank hunters have survived. He wonders what happened inside. He sees Jin-Woo and notices him telling the girl he'll drive her home. It's then that the master halts him. "Master, let's talk for just a while." But Jin-Woo pushes him away, saying, "I'm so tired. If you have something to ask, go ask the guild members." However, the master pulls him back, telling him, "I'm the master of the White Tiger Guild. We have lost 9 guild members from this incident. Isn't it natural that I, as the master, be allowed to ask some questions?" But Jin-Woo says to him, "So what? I saved the remaining 3 people, and if you're the master, shouldn't you first thank me?" The master relaxed slightly and said, "You are right. I apologize." As Jin-Woo moves on his way, the master asks the remaining hunters what occurred inside the dungeon. She lets him know that she doesn't have an idea because after he kills the boss, he shouts something thrice in front of the corpse. Chiffon tells the master, "He isn't a bad person. It must be because he was tired." and the master says it is no problem and asks him why he hasn't recruited him yet. He asks him to hurry up and recruit him into the guild, saying, "I will give you my complete support. Bring that man over to our guild at all costs." Chiffon tells him he will do his best. The scene shifts to Jin-Woo, who was in his car taking Song-yi to her house. As he drove off, he reflected on why he could not make Baruka a shadow soldier, muttering, "What a waste." He regards the weapon that he had obtained from the fight, thinking, "At least I obtained this." As they arrive at their destination, he tells Song-yi she did well, and she calls him older brother and thanks him for everything, then runs away saying, "I'll see you later." Jin-Woo looked at the time and thought, "It's already midnight," and began to head home saying, "It's back to raiding with Jin-Ho starting today." It fast forwards to the next day. We see Jin-Woo looking at Jin-Ho and asking, "Did you bring all that equipment in a cab?" He replies that he is planning on picking him up. As they drove away, Jin-Woo asked him to pick someone up on the way. They stop at Song-yi's place, and Jin-Woo calls her to ask her to come out because he is going to give her a lift. Jin-Ho gets the wrong idea. He thinks that Jin-Woo must know her number, can hold a friendly conversation, and wonders if they have a deep relationship. He asks Jin-Woo if he has to start calling Song-yi's sister-in-law from now on, but Jin-Woo tells him, "She is just my sister's friend." Song-yi approaches the car and greets them entering the car. Jin-Woo asks her if she was able to get some sleep last night, and she tells him she wasn't able to sleep. So, she says to lie down in the car because she must be worn out. She asked the same question to Jin-Woo and told her, "Just a quick nap, as it was already past 4 a.m. when I got home." Jin-Ho was making weird faces, wondering what they were talking about. He says, "Song-yi is a minor," and Jin-Woo asks him why he says that, and he replies, "Never mind," while thinking, "He's not normal, but I should not judge him by ordinary standards."